Hello, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingras, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, the show designed to make the world safe for ADHDers. I am a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist. I'm in private practice. I have been doing this for decades and decades, and I'm also the parent of a couple of ADHD kids, and we've recently discovered my wife also has ADHD. Um, so understand, when I first started this whole process, there wasn't such a thing as ADHD. It hadn't been named anything yet. Um, and so there was very little research. We didn't know. I mean, I had some of the best people in my area evaluate my son, particularly, and oh, I don't know, seems brighter than average, but don't know. So there I was. The experts had sort of told me that there was nothing really wrong, but the teachers were telling me a whole another different story, and so it it got to be a problem. So the it wasn't until 1987 was the first time we had ADHD as a diagnosis. Uh, Before that, about 6 or 7 years before that, we had ADD as a diagnosis, attention deficit disorder, which made more sense to me than attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. But that's the problems with bureaucracy. And so we didn't know what was going on, and so we kind of we tried to pretend that there was nothing out of the ordinary. Although, when I look back on it, it's like, you were out of your mind. I mean, come on. You can't not pay attention to all these signals that there's something wrong. Um, and and that's what I know many of my patients do is they come in, not all of them, but a significant proportion will, I don't really think there's anything wrong. This teacher wants us to get him evaluated or her evaluated, or, it's usually, well, and especially if dad, usually the ones that are most resistant are the fathers. I don't know how to explain that, but then again, women are way more likely to go to the doctor in the first place than a man, because we're big, brawny, muscular, et cetera, and we don't want to admit there could be anything wrong. But I don't know if that's what carries over into the whole ADHD parent kind of thing, but that's frequently what happens. Just a normal boy. It's got lots of energy. Uh, yeah, he's got lots of energy. He's got no control, unfortunately, so that's a problem. Anyway, so the deal is you've got to accept that you've got ADHD. Now, I hope you've got a good evaluation by somebody who's competent, who knows what they're doing, and does a bunch of these all the time, and ideally have some advanced training in the testing. But that's kind of the minimum, because ADHD is tricky. You can be sure you got it, and it turns out it's something else, or you can be sure it hasn't got it, and it'll tend to be ADHD, and pretty strong. So the thing is that people think, oh, ADHD is the end of the world. He's never going to be able to hold down a job. And I'm going to just use he because most of the ones that have the big problems are guys. Women have, some problems too. They're quieter though about it. And a lot of my experience, well, with my own family, was mostly my son was more often in trouble than my daughter would. Just sailed through. And she was bright enough that she really, it didn't matter if she studied or not. She made it easily. Anyway, then the, the deal with ADHD is it's not a life sentence. Well, it's a life sentence. It's a lifelong condition. Very few, if any, folks actually who have ADHD and have been, competently diagnosed. Very few of those people outgrow it. What they outgrow is the overt hyperactivity. They're not going to be 40 years old and running around tipping over chairs in the meeting room or any of that stuff. But they're still going to have it. They're still going to have the attention problems and the working memory problems. Those are, and just the executive functioning problems in general, which I'm not going to go over again because I've done it a couple of times, but I probably will sometime in the future again. But the thing that you don't do, and the thing that's not going to help your child, is if you don't accept it. Okay, he's got ADHD. Now it's, what do we do? Okay, it's sort of like if your son wants to play basketball in the NBA, but he's a freshman in high school and he's 5'1" and weighs a sterling 105 pounds or something, odds are pretty good that he's not going to make it in the NBA. He'll be lucky to even make the high school basketball team. And then the varsity would be an even bigger leap. So he's got to adapt. And you've got to adapt. Maybe basketball isn't what he should spend all his time developing skill at. I mean, you can say, oh, yeah, well, Muggsy Bogues was only 5'2" and he played in the NBA. Yeah, he was 5'2", but he was built like a tank and could jump over the backboard. So wasn't exactly your regular short guy. Some things just physicals, things just eliminate you from certain activities. And the smart money's on accepting that and finding stuff that, you have the natural talent for, or not the natural talent, because talent is highly overrated. It's more if you're willing to do the work, but that you still fit the kind of basic, when a coach looks at you, he'll say, oh, yeah, okay. Or, it doesn't have to be sports. I'm a golf pros kid, so I kind of think that way first, but wants to be a musician. Well, that's fine. No problems with that. As long as he or she is willing to, do the practicing to get good, it's just, there are some things that you are, probably eliminated from doing well in, and, being sports is one of the ones where the physical gifts your parents give you are probably more important than anything else. If sports is really important to you. The other, deal is, how much are you willing to work at it? Because, the big deal is, okay, I accept that I am not an ideal size to play basketball at a high level. However, I love the game, and so I want to practice and get as good as I can, develop all the skill I can, and I want to try anyway. Okay, that's reasonable. It's probably not going to work out very well, but it's a reasonable way of looking at it. Kid's got ADHD. Well, there's actually nothing that is totally ruled out. But you're going to have to learn to compensate. There are things you can do that allow you to have ADHD and to still function well academically, but you've got to be able to work at it. You've got to encourage your child to work. Don't ever, oh, you're so smart, you can, no, it's, you put in so much effort to this that you got really good grades that time. proud of you for that, for the effort you made. Always praise the effort. Don't praise an inherited trait or something. It's not very that doesn't work for you. Is to praise something that they don't have any control over. They have to know that it takes some work, it takes some effort. And your ADHDer is going to have some troubles. Okay, focusing, concentrating, problems with working memory, remembering routines, remembering instructions, all that sort of thing. But you can compensate for a lot of that. You know, uh, and I always talk about externalizing your executive functioning, and that means you have to put something on the wall or give them, a tool to use that reminds them what the steps are and the process they're supposed to follow, including, the bedtime routine and the morning routine. They're uh, Easy Daisy is a company, a Canadian company actually. They make a pretty nice set of hanging kind of things that have the morning routines and evening routines, and you just move a little magnet, from not done to done, and that keeps your ADHD on track. It's it's a very simple but a very logical system, and it's based on good neurology, and I highly recommend it, honestly. And the But there are other things that they don't have a good sense of time passage. So the loudest, funniest looking, most noticeable clock you can think of. Uh, a lot of people use it. It's called the Pomodoro technique, and it's based because the clock they used was a kitchen timer that was looked like a tomato, and get something like that, something that they will, or some cartoon character maybe that they make a line of stopwatches for, because they don't have a good, like I said, a good sense of time passage. So you give them something that's and shows them, that, oh, you've been doing this for 15 minutes. Okay. And then you break down the study time to, whatever you've decided, half hour, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever. And then you have your little break in between, and then you get back to it, reset the timer. Okay. You need things like that. And they need to have an organizer that they'll use. Okay. I mean, there are tons of organizers out there in the world. And in my area, the school system gives a organization system. Oh, probably because there's this god awful block scheduling stuff, and nobody can keep track of that. If you're not familiar with block scheduling, that's where you have an A schedule and a B schedule, and it flips back and forth most of the time. So on Monday you go to the A classes, on Tuesday you go to the B classes, Wednesday the A classes, Thursday the B classes. Except when there's some special event or something like that, then it totally screws the whole thing up. And I know tons of ADHD kids who are always have the wrong books. They've got the B day books and it's an A day. So that's not very thoughtful of the people who make policies for the school system. I personally think that was designed to punish ADHD kids, and because it makes no sense, and I don't even know any teachers who like it. So the thing you need to do is, when you're developing your adaptation stuff, remember that it's important to catch them being good. You need positive reinforcement, and you want appropriate, sincere praise. You don't want one of these praise for participation kinds of things. If you're one of those parents, it ain't gonna work. And kids, well, kids not so much. Yeah, kids they're pretty aggressive in terms and think who won and who lost and that sort of stuff means a lot to them. But in sports and in most of life, there are going to be people who are going to win, and there are going to be people who are not going to win. And you want to praise performance. You want to praise when he or she does something well. Okay, and even if you have to stretch it a little bit, you want to be doing that. I've talked before about the Lesotho principle. Basically, human performance is optimal when there are 4 positive comments for every critical comment, at least. And this is more adult. With kids, it's probably more than 4 to 1. With wives, it certainly is more than 4 to 1. You are important to your child, whether you believe it or not. I mean, he hates me. Well, no, he doesn't. He is having a rough time, and nobody can rescue him, come to think of it, except you, because you have to teach him the strategies, the way to adapt and adjust, so he can do reasonably well in school and first jobs and all that other thing. If he doesn't know how to compensate, he's in trouble. She's in trouble. They're in trouble. Okay? All right, so acceptance of the diagnosis, learning about it, knowing what it is, how it presents itself, all those things. And adapt. Recognize. And the first thing you have to do is get over yourself. This is not personal. He's not acting out, or she's not acting out because they want to get even with you for something. They are acting out basically because their dopamine levels are too low, and life is frustrating. Then life is frustrating for an ADHD kid. So your job is to recognize that it's not personal, that it's not because they're developing into a sociopath or something. Those sorts of things are you need to be thinking, this is ADHD, it's a neurologic condition. It's a very frustrating way of life, when you're first starting out and don't know exactly how to compensate for it. So my job, I have the big job of teaching compensation. And hopefully you've got a good therapist, and maybe more so a good coach. And coaches are the people who take us to the next level, and that's what they're designed to do. There's a big difference. Okay, therapy is designed to get you from where you are to normal. And coaching is more designed to take you to as high as you can go. And ideally, your coach is trained to do that. Okay, let's call it a day here. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingras. This has been Dr. G's ADHD Chat. We've been talking about adaptation, acceptance and adaptation of ADHD. My website is terrygingrasphd.com. Come by, sign up for my list. We're starting a couple of things that are, interesting. I'm establishing a full-time coaching program, and I do a lot of ADHD executives and entrepreneurs. So, Mom, if you're out there wondering where to send your husband with ADHD, I might be just the ticket. Anyway, you can sign up for a practice session, if you will, a freebie session so we can figure out if we can work together. And you can do that on my website. And also, I'm looking into a membership group. And basically that's, you take, we meet once a month live for, where I'll do a presentation I'll do a Q&A and another every month at a separate time. And we'll, there'll be other bonus kinds of things during the month. And I'm not sure the fee yet. I think about $27. That's not even Starbucks money. So um, that shouldn't be a barrier. And if people find that they like the membership model because they find other people like themselves, people are going through the same thing, raising ADHD kids, raising ADHD husbands, and so on. So look for announcements about that. I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to launch that because I've been busy, and pretty soon I'm going to have everything cleared up and organized, and when that day comes, no, it'll be before then. Okay, so we will set you up for some of that if you want. Let me know. Let me know if you're interested in that sort of thing. Okay, that's me for today, and we'll see you next time.